This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I am your host, Bud, here with Florida Mike this week on the road on a summer vacation. You got bullied into this vacation, right, Mike? You flew down Spirit and everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're bullied into it, but after being on the road the last couple of weeks and then being on the road for pretty much the whole month of April, it would have been nice to just have a relaxing non-travel week. But I'm so glad we came, having a great time. And yeah, spring break in Florida, and in your home state, man. Well, not home state, but in your state. And
it's my home state now, not where I'm from, but my home state.
Right. Your home state. Sure. And you guys have been here since what? November?
October. Yes.
October. I don't understand how I've been here for 2 days and I already have more color than you. Do you not go outside? That's more the sun. Man, we went out in the sun one day. That was yesterday. One day, and I am fried. My face hurts.
Hey, when you live down here and you're working down here, it's not every day is a vacation, Mike, where you can lounge around and do whatever you want and go to the beach and do whatever. Mikey,
I just picture you out on the golf course, just covered head to toe. You've got the hood, the UV hood, and the big
UV hood. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have not touched a golf club in a month, so if not more. So I have been a bad golfer this summer. So, well, and then you're on the road on spring break, and I was on the road visiting a client this week. I was trying to stay out of being in the city, but I wound up, Delta canceled my flight, so I wound up flying in LaGuardia anyways and making that drive across to New Jersey. Yep. So there I am, back again on the George Washington Bridge, cruising across the Hudson. So, yes. But Mikey, did I partake in some pizza and some Italian along the way, my man?
Did you?
This place. Yep. I did. And then I found this place. I mean, this is not rotated right, so we apologize. I'm not that good of an editor. But this is like a freezer chest of singles at an account.
Oh, that's actually a grab and go, like an off-premise account. Because that has that.
Yeah, that's a grab and go, like a freezer.
Really old school. Yeah, it's like the reach and style of an old school on-premise account, right? We had a few of those where it's just all mixed up. Whatever you grab and you go, right?
Exactly. This is right at a little bodega, my man. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it was in and out of stores, bodega style, all over the place. They got products everywhere, not really a rhyme and reason to the settings. And then this place, I love this place so much, I left my credit card. I had to go back the next day and pick it up.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
I don't know, a little Caesar salad action, a little pizza. Even some of the pizza made it home for Sarah, too.
You just tucked it in your suitcase?
So how'd you get it home? Yep. I brought it home in the suitcase. I stole, so I got the big pizza box from this restaurant, which clearly doesn't travel that well. So then I asked the restaurant at the hotel if they had any of like those circle plastic takeaway containers. And they did. Yeah. And what I had fit in it fairly well. And boom, out the door I went with it in my bag.
Oh, dude, that's classic. Oh man, I'm sure
it was perfect. It was perfect.
What the hell?
It was perfect.
Do you have any food or beverages in your carry-on, sir? Nope, not at all. Just a little slice of pie.
Well, you remember we were in Vegas for an AB meeting, and Sarah and I got in an argument on the phone, and I was not very kind to her. So then I went to a C-store and I bought a crappy little soft-sided cooler. And then I walked down the strip and I got Shake Shack because she loves Shake Shack. And when I left the next day, I had packed the cooler, which you can bring on an extra bag if it is food related. Little known fact, if you have a bag that's food, that's an extra personal item for anybody who's or typically is, at least on Delta it is. So I got a bag of ice, put the burgers in there, walked onto the plane and brought Shake Shack home, solved all my problems. $14 cooler, $14 cooler from the CVS on the strip, and a little Shake Shack, and boom, I was back in their good graces again.
Oh man, that's good best practice right there.
It was the greatest. It was the greatest.
I love it.
Getting into this episode, we're going to kind of play the ball as it lies kind of an episode, Mikey. We haven't talked about Delta 9 and THC, but the market I was in this week, very growing, not as sophisticated of a THC or as a well-developed THC market as Minnesota, but definitely on the way. And like, it was just a lot of like, is this good for beer? Is it bad for beer? Is it good for distributors? Is it bad for distributors? What's going on with Q1? Challenging Q1 trends, challenging Q1 sales are pretty much across the market. And at the end of the day, like, distributors playing the ball where it lies and doing what's right for their organization to make up and rebuild their profits in the aggregate. Because you got things like, Modelo's got challenges. If you've got Modelo, we've got tariffs to talk about. Constellation is even turning negative. The beer purchasers index for the first time in like 5 or 6 years, the import category turned negative as well. So like, in terms of contraction territory, like, there's a lot of stuff, and these THC drinks are getting all kinds, or Delta 9 drinks are getting all kinds of notice. And like, this is playing the ball where it lies at the end of the day, is what I saw a lot with the reps that I was working with this week. And I totally get it. Like, the money's there, and you need to grow your GP. And if you're a Molson Coors client, you're coming off the high and you're fluttering back down from the market challenges. From what we're seeing, Molson Coors wholesalers are challenged with some market share too. Anheuser-Busch is picking up market share. If you don't have Constellation, you're losing market share to them too. So you've got your own challenges on a Molson Coors-centric wholesaler. If you're an ABU wholesaler, you're picking up market share, but you're challenged with the headwinds of the total market as well, of just what's going on in the industry too. So you've got that issue too. And like, we've talked about this a bunch, right? Like, we got to rebuild the business in the aggregate. We're not going to replace Bud Light. We're not going to get back to Bud Light numbers, whether that was good for you or bad for you. So we got to rebuild the business in the aggregate. And how are you going to win as a wholesaler? And that's what I saw a lot this week.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the, play the ball where it lies. And we were talking with a couple clients last week and the week before, and you were talking about loss aversion, right? And the mental, you explained it the best, but people are more worried about losing something than they are excited about gaining something, right? So when we think about losing something, our mind just kind of goes there, and that's where we're really funneled to. And we shut off the positive of the experience of gaining something sometimes. And I've seen that lately, the last couple months, just talking with some different clients, obviously losing Ghost for a lot of the AB clients.
Yeah.
The month of March was a big deal. Ghost was actually doing really well. It has some great GP behind it. And there were a few clients that, when they lost Ghost, they actually brought on some new brands, a couple established and a couple of brand new to them brands. So even though the story was always about losing Ghosts, and we touched on, we're picking these up too, but the focus was really what we lost. And then now that we finished up March, come back and look at the numbers, some volume hits were maybe down 5-10%, but the GP and the revenue was flatter up, which was great, right? Because rebuilding the aggregate, yes, we're losing something. It had some great potential, but we're also bringing in some new items. And not everybody, has the ability to do that, but still being able to regroup, play the ball where it lies, see what else is out there, put some focus on that, rebuild the aggregate to get the GP at least flat to up.
Do you think on Delta 9, we've talked about this a couple times now, do you think it's super negatively impacted by impacting beer, or do we think it's marginally or fringe, or is kind of like, come on, bud, like, it's not that big a deal, this is just a general category issue?
My personal opinion, I think it's really affecting the 21 to 30-year-old consumer.
Okay.
Marginally affecting the 20 or 30 through say 40, and then 40 plus probably not so much. But yeah, I do think that that younger generation, 21 through 29 year olds, that they are choosing THC products over alcohol. So yeah, I think that has a pretty big impact.
What I don't get about it is that group of consumers in that 21 to 30-year-old, that young Gen Z consumer, is they want to drink or consume things that are like real food. Everything is natural. Everything is about whole foods. Everything is about healthy. Why the hell are they glomming on to something that is synthetic?
Yeah, true.
It makes zero sense to me. I do not get it. And like, you can say there's no safe level of alcohol, or you can buy into that context, but the way that beer is made, or the way that wine is made, or the way that spirits are made, it's an incredibly natural process, with the byproduct coming out is very low ingredients, very limited number of ingredients, and the ingredients that are used are often incredibly simple and are more often than not whole foods in some way, shape, or form. And it just to go glom onto something that is completely synthetic just seems so hypocritical to me. I don't get it at all. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. Yeah, there's been, for the lack of better word, there hasn't been a whole lot of positive reinforcement in the alcohol industry lately, right? In the last 5-10 years, for I think to kind of shape that consumer, the 21 through 29 year old, the younger consumer, to shape them that alcohol in moderation is still okay for you, right? Like you just said. I mean, the ingredients list on most beers, five ingredients, right? So I think to kind of get back to maybe the early 2000s, late 90s, when we were really promoting just alcohol, the industry in general, that it is safe in moderation, right? Not everybody has to go out and kill a fifth of Tito's every day, just to survive and have a good time. We can have some beers and chit chat with our friends just as much. But I think getting back to that, and I think that generation really missed out on a lot of that, and all that they really heard for most of their life was how bad alcohol is for you. And then
Yeah.
here comes this product where it's THC. It's been around forever. It's grown from the earth. It's all natural, and there's very little research done on their part to figure out exactly what is Delta 9. They just see THC and go, it's just weed, right? It's just taking THC and putting it in the seltzer, without really knowing what Delta 9 is, or Delta 8 even, right? With less regulation. So I think I think it's just the kind of way that generation has been shaped and formed through media and social media. And that's the other thing too, social media, right? Where now
Yeah.
we can really get to somebody, without having to go on TV or take out an ad or anything like that with social media.
So interesting. So fascinating. Well, the other thing I saw this week is that off premise is clearly leading the charge with independent C store and packaged liquor stores. So if you're in a heavy C store market, like, boy, is this an opportunity for you to reconsider your position on it when it comes to playing the ball where it lies and rebuilding your profits in the aggregate. On premise is about to get steamrolled on this whole thing again. They're scared to do it. They don't know how to cope with it. They don't know whether people should or shouldn't be drinking it here, and like continue to see challenges in the beverage industry around, just think about all the things that on premise has taken into the teeth, like smoking bans. Then you've got drunk driving. Well, the drunk driving stuff really started first, and all the regulations around that, which that should have been done, but that's a headwind for them. Still got drunk driving issues, and the focus around that. Nobody wants a $5,000 drunk driving, or wants to drive home and hurt somebody or kill somebody. So that's still a big headwind. Then you've got smoking bans. That's happened. Then you've got COVID, which shut your business down. And COVID, when it shut your business down, like, everybody reset what they were doing from an expectation or from going out. A lot of habits changed. You got that young consumer that never ingrained habits of going out and having beer with their friends. And now you've got this problem ahead of you. Like, this is a product that is like, oh, maybe it'll bring my younger consumers in, or maybe I can start to dabble with, but like, you don't even know whether you want to do that, because you've got rules and regs around drunk driving. And if you send somebody out the door drunk, you're going to get in trouble. How are you supposed to keep track of them if they're drinking THC too? or whatever else they're doing along the lines of this as well. So they're just another huge.
You're sitting at a bar and you order 5 Imperial IPAs at 10-11% ABV, and you start slurring your words. The bartender's like, "Yeah, but you're done, right? Go call an Uber and get the hell out of here. I'm done with you too." But you're sitting there and you have 5 THC drinks. How do you measure that besides just the consumption? Because everybody's going to take a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then where is the cutoff point? You send somebody out your door, they had 2 or 3, you thought they were fine, they get in a car accident, kill somebody, it's in their blood, comes back to you, right? There's a lot of just uncertainty in that whole entire on-premise segment. And I think until, some sort of measure of impairment gets better, we've discussed this a couple times, but like a breathalyzer, something that is like, okay, you are under the influence right now. No, you did not, take THC 4 days ago. It was in the last 2 hours, and your level of impairment is here. Just like we do with the alcohol industry. I think until we get to
Crazy.
that point, that sort of standardized measurement, that it's just going to be, it's still a really, really great area. And it's interesting too, because, we follow Minnesota quite closely because they're kind of just on the leading edge of all of this. And, throwing it on draft, putting it on draft as an option too. I mean, that's amazing. I, in my lifetime, never thought that I would see a THC drink on draft at an on-premise establishment. It's just something that's like, whoa, what's going on here? All right. But watching how that unfolds, and I'm interested to see kind of how those numbers unfold. We had Ian on, and he's talking about how the growth, I think projected by the end of 2026 to be 500 million and just in off premise. That's 180 million growth from 21. So like that is a huge part of it, is the off premise, but there's a lot of uncaptured audience and a lot of potential with the on premise if we could just figure out how to regulate it and how to measure impairment.
Well, you were chatting earlier too about what's going on in Florida. So Florida's a huge market, tons of
Yeah.
people, tons of also doing what you're doing. A big market where you've got a lot of people who travel to and do a lot of tourism into the other parts. So it's a huge introduction state to new ideas, new concepts, new marketing things. This is why people care about New York or Florida, New York, California, Texas, because people are also transit and they're going in there to vacations and everything. Not only are they just big markets, just from lots of people who live here already. But what happened this week in my home state on Delta 9
Yeah, you
that I
missed
am not aware of?
it.
Completely missed it.
Got in and got situated, and the news was on. Yeah, big story on Delta 9, and how April. So I mean, this episode is being recorded April 3rd, so just 3 days ago. April opened up for Delta 9 products, legalization of Delta 9 products, and there's already a bill being floated out there to put some more regulations on it, right? Not to just allow the Delta 9 to be a wild, wild west type of thing where everywhere and everything, no regulation. So the bill has, they want to cap THC at 5 milligrams per serving and 50 milligrams per package, which we've talked about before, right? There's going to be a cap. There has to be a cap. We can't, in order for this industry, this segment to be successful, we can't put a 100 milligram or a 50 milligram on a shelf next to a 5 or a 2.5. It's
It
just
economically makes zero sense too, by the way.
economically, yeah, exactly, right? I can buy one can at $5 and not have to buy any more products for the rest of the weekend, or I'm gonna need this whole 8 pack because it's 2.5 or 5, first per. So I think that's a good regulation. 5, we've gone back and forth, and we had Ian on. He had talked about, he thought it would land at 10 for most states, but it's Florida, right? So and I actually was quite surprised that they were where they are already with all of this, because they still don't. I mean, regular THC, regular marijuana is not legalized. They do not have recreational dispensaries here in the state. So
Nope.
jumping right over the whole entire recreational marijuana and right into Delta 9 really shocked me. And that's why I was like, whoa, can I watch this again? The news story. I'm like, did I just hear what I heard? So yeah, I did some Googling, and yeah, it's true. So, and then the bill would also, and I love this, the bill would require that the Delta 9 THC products be distributed by beer distributors. They have to go through a wholesaler, beer wholesaler, alcohol wholesaler is what it says, actually, not just beer, but alcohol wholesaler, and only sold to retailers and establishments holding a liquor license. So, really just being handled a lot like an Elk Bev. which is great. Which is, as beer distributors, that's exactly where we wanted to see this product kind of land, not only in our house for our own profits, but for the regulation purposes too.
Yep.
Right? You want to make sure the licensed establishments, they have the right licensing, they have the right training, they have the restrictions in place already to ID people, and not just have it end up at a Dollar Tree near you. And be able to be purchased by anybody. So that was really good. And then they also put a ban on Delta 8, which I kind of agree with, right? The less regulations on Delta 8 versus the Delta 9. So those were the three things that are on the bill. I mean, I don't see why this wouldn't pass. It's just putting some more regulations on it, right? So who knows? But we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, really, 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 really shocked to see that news come out as soon as I landed here. And it's too bad it didn't happen a week ago, because I'm sure I can't go to the store and find one anywhere now.
Well, legislatively too, it opens up the kind of minefield around who's going to regulate this. Because if you dump it into the state, it's like, is it the farm bill people? Is it the health and safety folks? Is it the health department people? Is it the beverage alcohol folks? Because they all have different, as state-based agencies, which you may have 2 or 3 or all 4 versions of that, but as state-based agencies, you may have different plans or different perspectives on what you want to do. And like, that's an infight waiting to happen at state legislators and as state regulatories too. So trying to clarify like who and codify who is in charge of the licensing and who is in charge of the documentation around this in the beverage alcohol is really smart by the Florida beer wholesalers as well. And the economic thing. Do you remember D.H. Harrison from Country Boy Brewing? You remember D.H., don't you?
D.H., yeah.
Remember what he said? Like, this is back to it just makes zero economic sense to have anything more than 5 milligrams, because when he made Cougar Bait, he always talked about we needed a 3 beer, something that you would have multiple drinks of. And when you have 5 or 10 I mean, even 5, I think is too much. When you have 10 milligrams, like, it's not a 3 beer. It's not a 3 weed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need
It's
that.
not a 999.
Yep. Do I want to sell you one?
We got to come up with a tagline there.
I want to sell you 8 cans.
Yeah, it's not a 999. It's a single 9.
It's a single 9. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll take a shot. I'll buy 1 can. I'll take 1 shot every night, and that's all I need. And I'll buy 1 can a week. Well, that's not really helping the industry. When we're talking about Florida, like going that direction, Texas going the opposite direction, right? The governor there, Dan Patrick, putting out, he aims to basically ban all forms of THC products in the whole state, including those derived from hemp, which would be Delta 9. So that would be a big, Texas is a huge state, right? So to see a move like that will be interesting too. Where we have Florida, would think that, in my personal opinion, would think put the whole ban on everything, jumping over the recreational, diving right into Delta 9, and then Texas saying, nope, it's all out of here. So it'll be interesting to watch those 2 states play out.
Just demographics at work for sure.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to another topic, we've got tariffs locked in. Trump has announced 25% tariff on all imported canned beer and empty aluminum cans. About 40% of the imported about 40% of imported beer is in cans. And obviously this is directly hitting at Modelo and Constellation and Corona, where they've got about 70% of their beer imported. You've also got Heineken and Diageo will be hit by this. And holistically, like, a lot of people will be hit by this, because not every can that is manufactured and put into use in beer packaging in America is actually made in the U.S. There's a good component of that is imported in, because we do not have enough capacity to fulfill all the can demand at Ball, which is one of the major can manufacturers in the U.S. as well. So there's challenge. Like, this is going to be negatively impacting or be a headwind for all brewers, not just one or the other. I did think about this more in the context of like draft heavy or glass heavy brands. So think like Yingling is one that comes to mind too. New Belgium is another one that comes to mind. That at least old New Belgium, New Belgium with their 19.2 is probably a different story. But those are 2 smaller suppliers that come to mind that might not take as much of a bite out of this as others.
Yeah, true. Probably won't see as many empty tap lines in the next year too. We should get with Jen and run those stats pre-tariffs, post-tariffs, or during
Post tariffs,
tariffs,
that's a good idea.
and see some of that market shift. But no, you're right. I think it's exactly, you're going to start to see more and more suppliers probably focus their incentives, focus their push on draft to control some of those costs. We'll probably see, as cans and aluminum costs go up, and we start to see all the pricing on cans go up or across the board, we might see a hold or even maybe a decrease on draft or glass to try to get the market to shift that way too.
By doing this tariff on the actual aluminum, the raw material, this is going to open up an avenue for a price increase earlier rather than later, because it's going to impact everybody. And if it was basically just going to impact the importers of Modelo, Constellation brands, and Modelo and Corona, and then Diageo and Heineken, that is a different arithmetic around how do they handle it versus Molson Coors and Anheuser-Busch, which is basically 100% of everything is produced in the U.S., including even some import brands like Stella and Beck's and other import brands that are historically made overseas but have been completely brought over here to the U.S. And those are huge brands too. So I think this opens up a price increase in Q2. Easy.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
super easy to avenue
That
to
might
do a price
be
increase.
easiest price increase sell-in from a supplier to a distributor in recent history.
Yeah.
And the retailers really they should understand too. It's not like it's a money grab from the suppliers with what's going on right now in the landscape.
And do you do it like you probably don't do it in Q2 because you need 60 days to kind of implement it, play around with the chains and kind of manage it. It probably moves the timeline up to maybe like an August, so like a first to Q3. I would not be surprised by that at all anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I would have been without the aluminum, but now that the aluminum is in play, it's a whole nother ball game now.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I'm interested to see if it's across the board too, just to try to recoup, because I mean, by the time August rolls around, if that's when it goes into effect, most of these suppliers would have already lost a good deal of money just because the cost went up so early. So, do they try to recoup some of those costs by going up on everything, or do they just try to get back with what they could on just cans?
Yeah, there's a strategic price increase around cans exclusively, or a global price increase as a general pink across the board on
Right.
everything. Yeah.
Yep. And with the
You-
landscape of being the way that it is too, it might be an easy way just to sneak in a general price increase across the board on everything, and not have a whole lot of pushback on that.
for sure. This doesn't negatively impact from a packaging standpoint wine or spirits for when it comes to the classic configuration. It does for things like high noon and the fastest growing segments in spirits where it is all cans. It's 100%
Yeah.
cans. And, who knows how much of it is or isn't imported. But this is going to drive, like the aluminum tariff pricing is going to still drive up America based in the Midwest premium pricing where you buy your raw materials. Like it's just going to drive pricing up across the board for an import tariff like this, which it already has. And the other piece that it does hit, though, is the general import tariff on everything is going to start to hit other segments of beverage alcohol. And that is going to be their contend with. And that might push some people who are big importers. Diageo, again, is going to get hit like this. And Gallo, again, is going to hit like this around their imports for wine and spirits. Sazerac is an interesting one because they do a lot of production here in the U.S. They're pretty robust production in the U.S. So we'll see how that plays out for them too. Because their largest spirit is Fireball, and that's all made here. That's not imported.
Right. Yeah, and their largest package would be plastic too.
That too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to shake out some winners. This is going to shake out some winners and some losers for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
The kind of scuttlebutt through the trade press is that maybe AB has been very strategic around advocating for this tariff in the right strategic way, which I find as like 3D chess, another fascinating thought process around
Yeah.
how they're advocating for. 100%. 100%. I mean, if they, you look at it and you go to the Trump administration and be like, hey, we've got union employees, thousands and thousands of people working in our breweries, and most of our wholesalers are union or labor in some way, shape, or form that have more than likely probably voted for you. They're all American and it's American made. We've got 12 breweries here in the U.S. Much of Anheuser-Busch's and Molson Coors for their U.S. based business, a lot of it is vertically integrated, where they have not just farms, but also packaging as well, and a bunch of other stuff that they're doing in cans and bottles and their own little can and bottling lines too, which they've kind of sold off and then have a relationship still with a private equity firm. But I mean, it's still same, even though it might not be same ownership anymore. But they look at it and like, you can stand in front of this administration and be like, we're investing and have always been invested in the U.S. and this person who's growing, taking jobs from our American employees and our U.S. based employees. It's it's all imported and it's all made across the border in Mexico. And that's who they're picking on when they're sitting with the administration talking about. So I find it a very interesting 3D chess move from Anheuser-Busch's perspective. And then also, you cannot tell me that Brennan Wentworth's perspective on American beer versus domestic beer isn't on purpose as well. That is all in line with a general theme that they're moving towards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you imagine what it'd be like if they didn't have the Dylan Mulvaney problem and the history played out the exact same way? And how they would just be a machine that would be unstoppable right now.
Yeah, unstoppable for sure. Yeah, I remember when.
It'd be crazy. Crazy.
What year was that? That was probably early 2000s, right around the craft boom, right? And when craft was still booming and coming out, there was all 16-ounce cans, 4-pack 16-ounce cans. If it wasn't keg, it was a 16-ounce can, and that created a shortage in 16-ounce can in the U.S. From Ball, right? And what did AB do? They didn't want to be short, so they went out and bought all of them. They bought as many 16-ounce cans, and I remember we were still getting. I mean, it was a little bit harder to come by, but I remember our AB rep at the time was like, "We bought them all, man. You're not going to get a 16-ounce can from any of your other suppliers, but we're going to continue. We don't want to be short." So, I wonder. Yeah, that was a pretty bold move back then too. It's like, hey, we're not going to be short. Same thing with the aluminum bottles. When the aluminum bottles first launched, they were the only ones with that bottle package because they bought them all. can't sell them to anybody else but us.
Nope. Wild. Love it. Well, Mikey, you got to get back to the family. You got to keep getting the sun and the tanning and get the sun and the fun. So a lot of good stuff this week. Thanks for joining us. If you like what we're doing, remember to continue to listen, share with your friends, like and subscribe.
Back to the fun in the sun, right? I have to get my whole fill of sun because after this week, I won't see the sun until June-ish, maybe mid-June back in Michigan. So
that's not true. We'll see it in May. I'll be back in May and I'll bring the sun with me, Mikey.
You're going to bring the sunshine? Do it.
I will.
And since you're coming back from Florida, bring some Delta 9 with you too, because we don't even have it in Michigan.
Delta 9 too. Yes. Love it. Well, cheers, y'all. Thanks, Mikey.
Cheers, everyone.